Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Tonight, we'd like to talk about the teachers being on strike. Last week, we were talking about inflation. In Zimbabwe, inflation, according to a professor in the US, is over 1,600%. And government has just announced that they're going to give teachers a salary increment of $20. It's a sick joke. It really is a sick joke. $20 when inflation is over 1,600%. Benjamin.
Good day to you and to our viewers. Thank you for joining us.
What do you think of this madness?
It's just, I think the employer is taking advantage of of individuals, or like rightfully you said, it's a sick joke that maybe they are taking people for a ride right now. I think I would have expected them to come up with a better figure, looking at how the cost of living is right now in Zimbabwe. Surely $20 would not suffice to cover anything, basically, even transportation now to and from, to work and back home. $20 probably is just like pocket money.
When you've got inflation sitting at 1,600%, $20, you honestly have got to say to yourself, this cannot be right. It doesn't make any sense. But let's face it, we've been here before. We've seen this happen again and again and again. Teachers, particularly, and healthcare workers have been hit hard by this regime. The question that maybe people should ask here is, I think it's twofold. First of all, of the available resources, the money that is there, you find the regime is spending all these hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, buying cars for chiefs, giving these politicians housing allowances of $40,000. Politicians, all the elected, recently elected MPs and senators and so forth, they're getting $60,000 car allowance and $40,000 housing allowance, plus their generous salaries. And yet, those who are at the coalface, the teachers, the nurses, are being paid nothing. This is absolutely unbelievable.
Yes, I agree with you, but on the other end, I also think that the people that are representing these workers, civil servants, are not doing a fair job, because you look at it, the salary, which we call the wage, the salary of teachers, is so poor. What makes it rise up is allowances. The COVID allowance right now, they're still getting money for the COVID allowance, which we know COVID has since long gone. These allowances, they can be withdrawn. This is why you found out that they were getting, I think probably a few years back, before Mnangagwa took office, Teachers were getting roughly around about $541 thereabout. Those were not their wages. Those were not the salaries. Most of it were were, were allowances. Allowances can be withdrawn. What they need is for them to get salaries, a proper salary, without if you are to get allowances, they will be on top of the salary. This is where the mistake is, the bargaining power that they are missing. Forget about this whole COVID allowance. This is the majority of the money that the teachers are actually getting, which now they say, this is my salary. It is not your salary. That is an allowance. It can be withdrawn. So I think the bargaining part or the negotiation part is where they themselves are not doing themselves justice. And yes, I would agree with you to say, the priorities of our government is a little bit skewed. To say not a little bit, but it's very skewed. I mean, they are spending millions on campaigns. They are spending millions on service chiefs. They are spending millions in giving away people chicken in. Yet the fundamental people, the ones that are teaching their own children, their grandchildren, that will make the nation better, they've forgotten about it. I think that is very unfair.
Well, in this particular case, I would beg to differ with you that allowances, even if we say those allowances were part of the salary, still, as far as I understand it, I understand teachers are getting as little as, what, 150 US dollars per month? That is, you can't live off that. But I agree with you that some of it has been called allowances and they can be taken off. But even those allowances, I don't know whether you were aware of it. This recent budget by the Minister of Finance, one of the things that he introduced was that those allowances are now taxable.
Yes, I agree with you to say yes. Government has said now they are going to be taxed. But what my problem is why do you have to have it, your wages as an allowance, which something in, at any given time. This is what happened. This is why they fell from high up there where they were comfortable with to so low. They just simply just removed the allowances. Right now we know COVID has ended. It is a matter of time. Government will remove.
When you say they were comfortable, you're talking of during the GNU, isn't it?
Yes, these are where they want to return to. They say, give us back our $541, if I'm not mistaken, on the actual figure. But that is what they are claiming that they want.
That was 10 years ago.
Yes, that
so
was 10.
Over the next decade, their salary has been sinking.
Yes, been eroded.
Yeah. Day by day. I think it is tragic that we have reached this point in our system. But to be quite honest, my biggest concern is that the situation is never going to change until there is really meaningful political change. That has been my argument. Because at the present moment, if you think about it, even if they were to distribute some of the wealth evenly, with the economy, with unemployment as low as it is, let's be honest, there is no money. As long as Zimbabwe remains a pariah state, there will be no meaningful economic recovery. And as long as there's no meaningful economic recovery, we can expect poverty. The only reason why some of it has become even worse than it is right now is that certain sectors like education and health have been sacrificed by the regime to keep those in positions of power afloat and happy. And that is one of the things that I find absolutely unacceptable.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't see any change in the near future. Yes, they can plan demonstrations, but you are dealing with the regime that is not people oriented in the first place. I mean, if you are going to a negotiation and like you said, inflation is running at 1,600% plus, and then somebody comes straight out and says, okay, we have heard your complaints and your cries, we are going to give you $20. Surely, you know the distance between what you want and what they're offering is so far, but it's it's just pointless sometimes when you look at it. And so here we are. It's obviously going to be a stalemate between teachers and the government, the employer. But what I'm happy about, finally, from the article, finally they have made uh, a good stance to actually say, we are going to involve um, other ministries, to strike together and maybe amplify their voice. I think that is a very, very, wise decision. Not to say, how they used to say, this week teachers are on strike, 2 3 weeks later nurses are on strike. You would have wondered, you guys are fighting the same battle and you're employed by the same guy. Why don't you just voice, together? So for that, I think that is a very, very wise decision, and it should be applauded for a change.
Well, my parting remark to all Zimbabweans is that as long as we have got a corrupt, tyrannical pariah state, uh, that rigs election to extend its stay in power, the Zimbabwe economy is not going to recover. You can strike, you can all go on strike demanding better wages. But better wages from what? When unemployment is at 90%, most industries have collapsed. Where is the money going to come from? As much as the regime is looting the little that is there, I totally agree. But even if we look at that, we are not going to stop the regime looting as long as they retain power. And ZANU PF has been rigging elections to stay in power so they can continue looting. The solution is we should look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is we have to end this case of rigged elections and bad governance. And the teachers, nurses, all Zimbabweans, we have an invested interest in ending the case of rigged elections and bad governance. And the only way we can do that is making sure we have got free, fair, and credible elections. That's the only way you can. If you make those in power accountable to you, the rules, that is the only sure way of making sure you've got a competent government. So as much as I sympathize with this one, I feel that going on strike now, it's almost like trying to bolt the stable door when the horse is already bolted. We have got to get out of this cycle of thinking that if we strike, Zimbabwe can still be prosperous, even given we have got a corrupt and tyrannical regime. I honestly do not believe that will ever happen. That is my parting remark.
I would say I agree with you, but I would add to say, what this government lacks is accountability. I mean, surely, if they have monies to give service chiefs, motor vehicles, and pay for their good living, sponsor them for whatever they deem fit, and also giving judges 500,000, and the other ministers and all other legislators all sorts of monies. Surely, I'm sure they can afford to give teachers their share of of their work that they're putting in. So I think they should be held accountable, and they should answer to those questions. To say, I mean, you can't say you don't have funding if you can do this for other people that have actually done nothing. I mean, just before elections, when Parliament was dissolved, everybody walked away with 40,000 US dollars, and others 500,000. So surely the money should be there. And we saw from gold mafia, there's a lot of money being made. So I think government needs to be answerable, and the only way to make them answerable is by also cornering them and putting them into a corner and fighting back. But you have to fight back as in unity with everybody else. I think that is the only way you can have some form of government coming to a compromise. Otherwise, just doing it, as a small little organization with very little voice, you will not turn their heads. But as a collective, I'm sure, government will listen and will make a plan for them. And this time, they should be clever. Do not settle for these allowances. Settle for wages, proper salary. I think that is the best way to go, given the circumstances that we have already come out of, an election, and we are stuck. We are looking stuck with these guys here for the next 5 years. So I think we have to try something now. It's rather too late to say we can try and change, because we have already, participated, like you rightfully said. The horse is already gone. So now we have to just try and maybe use the donkey that is left behind. So yeah, it's a hard call. It's a hard call, given we are dealing with a very tyrannical regime, one that is not people oriented. So we will be updating our viewers on how this plays out in the next. They are starting their strike on the 22nd. It's a 3-day strike, so it's starting on the 22nd, and they said it might carry over into the next term, and hopefully they are willing to rope in some other ministries, probably health, and I say they should join. That's my closing remark.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. And to the listeners, thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you'll be able to join us again in future. And thank you and goodbye.